Welcome to another edition of Popcorn Bucket List, the show where we talk about boring box office stuff for about 10 minutes before we actually get to the real part that anyone actually cares about. I am your host, Nick Dahlhoff, and I kind of like the box office stuff. And it's my show, so deal with it.
You do what you want.
If you want, you just skip to the previews. I don't care. Sitting right next to me, once again, he's the smartest man on the campus of SMSU. If you doubt that, then challenge him. I dare you to just run into him anytime on the street. It's Mr. Ryan Meyerberg.
Hello, thank you. Thank you again for having me. And I'm not the smartest man.
He is. Ask him his favorite equation, point blank.
I don't know any equations. Is that a math thing?
Is that a math thing? So let's get into what we are going to talk about here on the show. We are going to talk about some box office stuff. One of the big things was the Mulan versus Tenet box office battle.
Yep.
There was a lot of updates that happened.
There was a lot of things going on.
Now, this was some very surprising news. It kind of blindsided us. In fact, I would like to cut to a live shot of Ryan's reaction of when I first told him that Mulan was turning over to Disney+. Let's cut to that now.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
So yeah, obviously you were surprised by it. I was surprised by it.
Yes.
We weren't necessarily agreeing with their decision. Let's kind of maybe look at how it worked out for them. So first, actually, let's look at how Tenet did, first and foremost. They went straight forward with one strategy of releasing straight to theaters.
Straight to theaters, yep.
They did a worldwide release, and then I believe it was a week later they went domestic here in the United States. Early on, some of the sources were kind of saying that for this movie to even break even, it was going to have to gross about $800 million, which is quite a feat.
That's a lot of money.
A little bit more recently, they're saying they only needed to gross $500 million to break even. I'm not sure how exactly they decide that, but just to see how it succeeds, let's go by that $500 million. Let's go by that $500 million mark. Mm-hmm. So overall, throughout this whole month of September, ultimately it just grossed just short of $300 million, coming in at $284 million. This looks like a pretty big gain. It made over halfway to that $500 million mark, but this next leg of the race where it's going to try and make that 500 is going to be the toughest.
Yep. That's like what you see in most movies when they come out. It's really strong opening couple of weeks, and then that drop-off really hits hard. Yep. And especially that's where more of the money goes towards the theaters than more towards the films. At least the box office price. So, yeah, it'll be a struggle, but, as we've talked before, with not as many films coming out, the options, I should say not as many newer films coming out, the options maybe might not, the options won't be there as to, let's say, a normal year and a normal release time. So there is a chance for them to make that money up, but it will be a difficult leg. It will be difficult.
So let's look on the other side of that coin with what Mulan did. Now, Mulan, they kind of did two strategies. They went to the straight VOD release on Disney+, but they also tried some international theater releases as well. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So the Disney+ release at first looked really good.
It did.
And then about a couple weeks later, all of a sudden articles were coming out saying, I think we miscalculated something here. Again, I don't know how they come up with this math.
Yeah, it's something with subscribers and their net income and stuff. I don't get it. So, you can look it up, but I don't.
Yeah, initially it looked like just on the Disney Plus release alone, Disney was grossing over $200 million on just the Disney Plus release. Then a couple weeks later, they were like, well, okay, I think we might have misjudged it here. Yep. It was closer to like $60 to $90 million estimates. Mm-hmm. Now, when you take their gross from their international markets, they only grossed about $64 million from their China release and some of the Asian, European theaters that were allowed to release it. So when you total all that together, taking the highest estimate of $90 million from the Disney Plus release, Mulan so far, at least from the month of September, roughly grossed only about a little over 154 million. This is about 100 million less than Tenet grossed. On the surface, it looks like Tenet wins, right?
It does. It does.
But when you take into the fact that neither of them have really made up their budget entirely,
Did
it's
anybody
almost
win?
Yeah, really. Is there? It's almost like if you watch a 2-car drag race, and both of them ran out of gas, and Tenet just kind of coasted a little bit farther, but neither of them really made it to the finish line.
Yeah. Yep.
So
that's a really good analogy.
thank you. I worked on that for like 5 minutes last night. But so it is going to be interesting because I think you and me were talking about a week ago when we were kind of discussing this. Tenet's playing the long game.
Yes.
They did have a pretty good first showing, and it has dropped significantly, as most movies do. But I think they knew they were going to have to play a long game. We'll just have to see how long this car can coast.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. I think Disney was going for drop it, let's get as much money as we can right away, and we'll just take it. Tenet was, we're going to the theaters, we're going to see how it's a fluid situation, and things are always changing, and we're going to stay in the theaters, I think, as long as they physically can. And I think that, like you said, that's the long game. It might not be making that huge profit right away, but hopefully throughout the duration, it'll make more money.
And you even mentioned there's not much competition either. As soon as these two movies came out, about 2 weeks later, you started seeing all these movies pushing their release dates back again and again, including Disney, which was kind of one of those first signs that maybe the Disney Plus release didn't work.
It wasn't as...
Because we assumed as soon as we heard Mulan, we're like, so Black Widow's going to follow and all these others.
And some of the actors in Black Widow are pushing for it to get dropped on Disney Plus for free. So there is some of that, well, yeah, but we need to make our money back, and if we can't do it on Disney Plus, then we're going to have to put it in the theater, and we're going to have to wait till some of these restrictions go away.
Yeah.
So it's changing.
And Warner Brothers is having to do the same thing too. Warner Brothers, who runs Tenet, because they also push back Wonder Woman as well.
Yep.
They're trying to get as less competition for Tenet right now.
Because if you're Warner Bros., you can't have two movies that should be making you a ton of money playing at the same time, competing with each other.
Why throw in more competition when you don't need to?
Yeah. Yep.
So again, this is kind of a developing situation. Unfortunately, the end of the day, if we had to simplify it, nobody really won. At this point in time. They're trying the best they can, and it was an interesting experiment to watch.
And however, I will say I have not seen Mulan yet. I would really like to, but I did hear in December it'll be free on Disney Plus.
And some people also, when they were talking about why it underperformed on Disney Plus, some people were saying, well, why would you put out a movie for $30 and then say, well, just wait a few months.
Wait a few months,
it'll be free. So a lot of people are saying that's one of the reasons why it didn't work on Disney Plus. It's because a lot of people.
Well, did it not work because they knew that it was going to be free, or did it bomb that hard? They said, all right, we should probably just
give it up for free.
Yep, we'll just move past the buck.
Yeah. So let's move on to some of the other movies that are hopefully coming out here in theaters. Again, at the time of this recording, these are some of the wide release movies that will hopefully make it their way to theaters. Be sure to check your own local theaters, though, as sometimes some come in late, some old ones that are coming back. We'll talk about those in a little bit as well. But here are a few wide release movies we think you should keep an eye out for. Coming out on October 9th is The War with Grandpa. This is a movie that stars Robert De Niro, where he basically has to move into his grown-up kid's home instead of moving into a nursing home. And he ends up having to basically move into his grandson's room, where the sixth grader grandson gets kicked up to the attic. So the kid declares war with the grandpa in a prank war sort of way to reclaim his room. Thus, hilarity ensues. I put air quotes around hilarity because I saw the trailer for this, and all the writings are on the wall that this is maybe not going to turn out very well.
Yeah.
However,
I haven't seen the trailer, but just from the description and it doesn't sound like it's going to be high on my list.
Normally, I would avoid this movie just in general, but spoiler alert, there's not going to be a lot of options here, and it's October. This is something we haven't mentioned. It's a horror movie prime season.
Yeah. And
if you're looking for fun, there's not going to be a lot of options here.
Yeah,
So
that's
this
true.
might be
That's true.
one of your only shots. Coming out the next week in October 16th, a Liam Neeson action movie. This could go one of two ways. Honest Thief. This is a movie where Liam Neeson plays a serial bank robber who has never been caught. And one day he meets someone who makes him want to go straight. So he calls the FBI directly to turn himself in to make a deal. He says, I'll give you all the money. I'll tell you every bank I've hit. Just give me kind of a reduced sentence. Well, two of the FBI agents try to double cross him and frame him not only for the bank robberies, but also a murder he didn't commit. And now Liam Neeson has to get vengeance on these two FBI agents. So for those of you who thought this was going to be a calm Liam Neeson movie, nope. He goes right back to the killing.
Well, I'm always a fan of Liam Neeson. I like his movies. Some more than others. Some are great. Some are okay. But yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. Haven't seen him necessarily in anything in a while. So yeah, I'll take a Liam Neeson action movie.
It could be like our experience with Cold Pursuit.
Yeah.
Where I hope it is. That's the only way this movie works for me, is if it's like our experience with Cold Pursuit. That's a long story, by the way. Coming out October 23rd, a movie called Connected. This is an animated movie from the same creative team that brought us the Lego movies, as well as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And basically it's about after a family feels like it's become more separated by their screens, they haven't been interacting as much, the father, voiced by Danny McBride, decides to take a family road trip to bring their daughter to film school in California. And there's a big plot twist in the trailer that I don't want to spoil because it looks like it's going to make this movie way funnier.
Okay.
Like, looking at it, there's all the visual gags, the dialogue jokes that Phil Lord and Chris Miller are very well known at doing. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was one of my favorite movies of this past decade, so I'm really hoping they keep
it up.
moving on. During that same weekend, we also have a movie called The Empty Man. Premise for that movie is about an ex-police officer who's trying to solve the mystery of this missing girl who stumbles upon this supernatural cult who's trying to summon a terrifying supernatural entity. So if you're into that,
it
October
sounds
23rd.
Yeah, it sounds like a Halloween season movie.
Yes, it does. Coming out that very next week, October 30th, right before Halloween, is a movie called Come Play. This is another horror movie where it's basically, it involves, when I saw it in the trailer, the creature, it looks like an even creepier version of Slender Man, if that's even possible.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But basically, and this is kind of me joking here, it possesses this kid's iPad and tries to get it to be his friend.
Oh, so like a evil Her.
Yes, that's probably the best way to put it. It's an evil, scary version of Her. That's probably the best way I could put it. But be sure to check out those trailers and check out which movies kind of interest you. Here at the Marshall 6 Theater, we have a few here that are still from last month that we think you should maybe go check out. Again, be sure to check this weekly as it changes weekly, but at the time of this recording, some of the ones to look for. Carrying over from last month, The Broken Hearts Gallery, Tenet, and Unhinged. And a new one that came in is a movie called Infidel. Be sure to check that one out, as that one sounds kind of interesting as well. But the theater also has a deal for $5 movies for basically throwback movies, older movies, however you want to call them. Three of the ones that are in there right now: Empire Strikes Back, one of the greatest Star Wars movies ever created.
One of the best, yep.
And two movies which are going with the Halloween theme. The first Scream movie, as well as Hocus Pocus, which I know has a really big cult fan following.
A lot of people, I would say, around our age have seen the movie Hocus Pocus, whether it was on Disney or TBS or whatever around the Halloween season. And I'm super excited to watch it. I'm going to go watch it. I'll probably bring the family. We'll go watch Hocus Pocus because it's a fun show, fun movie.
And those are some of the movies to check out here in theaters near us. Check out the theaters near you. Let's get into some recommendations here, Ryan. I got one I kind of want to talk about here. I'll start us off. It's kind of a double feature. I say that because I'm pretty sure one of these movies I had recommended in the past, but I want to recommend another movie to pair with it to make it even a little
Okay.
bit better. I believe in the past, either you or I have recommended Peanut Butter Falcon,
Oh, yes.
Shia
Yep.
LaBeouf movie, Dakota Johnson movie. I would also like to recommend the other half of that Shia LaBeouf renaissance, the LaBeoufissance, or the
LaBeoufissance.
Shia comeback, however you want to call it, Honey Boy, which, if you don't know, is a sort of biographical movie written by Shia LaBeouf, who stars Shia LaBeouf, where he plays what was essentially his experiences with his own dad.
Yep. And
When-
he plays the dad.
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf plays his dad in this case, and it really focuses on how he started out as a child actor and the experiences with that. And I watched that movie, and it kind of makes me feel bad for making fun of him. Because he went through kind of a dark phase
Yep.
there, and it kind of addresses this a little bit. And you kind of watch that and you go, yeah, being a child star is tough.
Yep.
This was kind of the effects of that.
Yeah.
So out of the two, I would say watch Honey Boy first, kind of understand where Shia is coming from, and then it kind of makes Peanut Butter Falcon even better to see him kind of come back and see him in kind of this indie movie style, which both are very good, I think, in this case. Ryan, what do you got? What have you been watching
Well,
recently?
I have a little bit different, not necessarily a movie, more of a show. We
Don't
started.
you know what show you were on, Ryan? We only talk about movies here. Never before have we ever talked about TV shows.
True,
I'm kidding,
true.
of course.
No, so I've been watching The Boys, and during one of those episodes, I noticed a trailer or preview or whatever for a show called Lovecraft Country. It's a show on, I believe, HBO. And just kind of, we were caught up with The Boys, and we just wanted to watch something new, so we threw on Lovecraft Country. Fantastic. We're like couple episodes in, and it kind of goes along with that horror, kind of like October-y vibe. It's great. It really kind of was a ball out of nowhere. I saw a trailer a long time ago. Really didn't think much of it, but it's like it crosses a line between like fantasy and comedy and drama, and it's really well done. I thought, like, sometimes when you blend all that stuff together, it can really not turn out very well. And this show, I thought, like, the character development, the storyline, and I can't remember the actors' names off the top of my head, but they've been in stuff and you've seen them around, and it was just a very well done show. I'm only three or four episodes in, but I just can't get over it right now. It's just.
I believe this is a collaboration with J.J. Abrams and Jordan
It is.
Peele.
Yes, that was one thing. After the first episode, I saw a Bad Robot, and I was like, J.J. Abrams isn't on this. What? And that was pretty cool. And yeah, Jordan Peele, fresh off Twilight Zone. So yeah, it's just he's kind of, with his past two films, he's kind of breaking into that alternative reality or kind of distorted reality kind of shows, and it's definitely worth a look into.
Well, that's going to do it for us here on Popcorn Bucket List. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to leave a comment of some of your own recommendations or what you thought of our recommendations. And be sure to check out the links provided in the description below for the CEC Theater here in Marshall, and as well as the Cinema Safe guidelines. We want to make sure that we stay safe in these times while also going out and enjoying movies. For myself and Ryan Meyerberg, we'd like to thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you at the movies.